In this video, we're going to be talking about paying yourself first, which I feel is a game changer, especially if you're self-employed or a small business owner. If you're new to my channel, my name is Kokun, and in this channel, we talk about real estate investing, money management, as well as career building. If those are of interest to you, consider subscribing. So let's get into it. This concept is one that I learned when reading The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach, where he teaches about paying yourself first automatically. That's the key difference. That's the change that has really helped me recently. So as some of you may know, I am self-employed. I work as a real estate agent with my income coming in quite sporadically. Quite a few times I found that I get, a few checks in the same month, and then there'll be some months where there's no income coming in. So it is quite sporadic. Here is the game-changing tip. I've set up my bank account such that each time a commission check comes in, I'm setting aside a percentage of my income for savings, for investing, for all the different categories that I find important for me. This is much easier to do if you're on a fixed salary because you have a specific payday each month. So you can set up automatic transfers at specific dollar amounts. Most banks allow you to do this. However, for me, because my income can be quite large or small at any given time, and it just comes in, whenever a deal closes, I can't just set up an automatic monthly amount, at least not yet. This is quite tough in order to set up the automatic transfers. Here is where I found a really good solution. Currently, I'm using the online bank Tangerine here in Canada, and this bank has an option in the money rules section of Tangerine. When you log in online, there's an option to pay yourself first. You can designate what type of transactions are your income so that each time one of those transactions happen, you can designate a percentage of it to be transferred to a specific savings account. I actually went all out. I set up multiple savings accounts, renamed them for the different uses that I had for this money. And then each time I get paid now, the money gets split into all of those savings accounts. And one of the best things about this is I get to see exactly how much money I have left over after accounting for all those different categories. So I really get to see what is my net income after accounting for, those savings and those expenses as well. So let's get a little bit into it. The really good part about this is that I get to see how much money I have left over in my bank after I've accounted for all of my saving, investing, and even some of my expenses. So I'll go into the exact breakdown of what happens each time I get paid at the end of this video. But if you're someone just starting out, what I'd recommend is this. If you're just starting on your journey to save money, try starting with as little as 1% a month. Each time you get paid, take aside 1%, 2%, just a small amount, and automatically save it. Just a few months ago when I started, I didn't know how much I could actually save, to be honest. And I started with just as little as 3%. Every pay just gets set aside for savings that I don't spend for my daily expenses. And now I've actually built that up to the point I'm saving anywhere from 15% of my after-tax income, which is an amount that I feel comfortable with, to know that each time I get paid, I'm setting aside some money for my financial freedom, as well as giving me space to spend the rest of the money without feeling any burden that I'm not saving money. I get to just spend it on the things that I need and that I want. And if you're already on this journey and you're not sure what is a good amount to save, I personally recommend saving anywhere from 10 to 20% of your income. And this also depends on, your income relative to your fixed expenses. But I find 10 to 20% tends to be a really good amount to aim for when it comes to saving money. So let's actually look at what happens each time I get paid. So I've set up a little graph you may see on the side here to show both as a percentage and as like a dollar amount. So for example, what I've put here is if I make $1,000 in income, which represents 100% of that paycheck, here's the breakdown that I have personally. So the first expense I always save for, and if you're self-employed, if you're a small business owner, you gotta do this. Otherwise you'll get hammered at the end of the year when you file your taxes. And that is to save for taxes. My income, I get paid a commission and I collect HST, which is the harmonized sales tax, on top of my income. So whenever I get paid a check of $1,000, I need to know that I'm saving for income tax, as well as I need to pay back the HST to the government when I file my taxes. So right now what I've done is I've set it up so that 40% of my income automatically gets set aside into a tax savings account. And this is the money that I'm going to be remitting to the government. 40%, it's based on your situation. That's the amount that I'm approximating I may have to pay this year based on what I can deduct and just the overall income I'm expecting to make. You got to decide what works for you, but if you're self-employed, if you're a small business owner, you got to do this. The next category is one that I feel passionate about, and that is donating money or tithing. For me, I'm a firm believer that, if you give a portion of the income you make every time, you will really benefit from that in many ways. And for me, that's been something I started to do when I got my first part-time job, and I've been doing it consistently. So my philosophy is that I want to give away 10% of my after-tax and after business expense income. So really my net income before my personal expenses. I set aside 5% of any income coming in into a giving savings account. And at the end of each month, I calculate, okay, this month I made this much. Here's what I spent in actual business expenses. And then whatever amount is left over, I calculate what is 10% of that. And I take that money out of this giving savings account to donate. And then the rest, I just put it back into my checking account. The next category is my savings and investing account. So what I've decided at this time is to save 5% each from my total income. With my savings account, what happens is that 5% gets transferred automatically and it builds up during the month. And I have a separate savings account at Wealthsimple that has this option to take the money out of my Tangerine savings account on a fixed day every month. So I have it set up on the first of each month. So this savings account builds up each time I get paid. And then once a month it gets cleared out. So it's kept out of sight, out of mind in a separate savings account that's building up over time. And this is sort of money I want to save for a rainy day. It's the money I want to, not consider that I have it in my checking. It's just money set aside should I ever need it. The investing account is one that I transfer to Wealthsimple Trade, and I use those funds to invest directly into the Vanguard index fund. So if you watch some of my index funds videos, this is the money that I'm putting into my index fund investing. So every time I get paid, 5% goes directly into index fund investing. The next savings accounts are really expense accounts, but since I know I'm going to spend money on these categories, I want to set aside the money each time I get paid so I can stick to that budget. It's much easier than trying to budget every month as here's my expenses, here's my income, because I don't know my income. The first category is traveling. I know, and both me and my wife agree, that traveling is something important to us. We want to travel, we want to experience different cultures, different countries. We want to enjoy it. That's part of why we work as hard as we do. Every time I get paid, 3% of my income gets set aside into my traveling savings account so that whenever it builds up, we get to spend it on a vacation, any kind of travel that we want. The money that's there has been allocated. We don't have to feel guilty about spending too much money or wonder if we have enough money to spend on a trip. It's set aside automatically, and if the money's there, we can spend it on a trip. So the last two accounts that I've set up are large purchase savings account, both for my business and for me personally. These are accounts to save money more for our wants than for our needs. These are expenses that don't necessarily have to be bought this month, next month. There's a bit of flexibility on the timeline, but it is something that, I really want. And if it's a business expense, it's something that I think will benefit my business. And if it's a personal expense, it's something we, just want to buy. What happens is 3% of our income gets taken out for each of those savings accounts automatically every time I get paid, and then it builds up. And then when an expense comes up that we want to spend money on, if it's built up in the account, if it's the most important thing we want to spend that money on, we will go ahead and do that. And if the expense is too much, like we don't have enough in that savings account, we'll just wait. So it's a good way for us to discipline our use of the money. So we're always making the money first before spending it. So it's a good way to keep our money use in line. One good example of this is I've decided to buy the Moment wide angle lens to help improve the quality of the videos I make, especially with walkthrough videos inside the homes before renovations, after renovations. I need a wide angle lens to really make the rooms look better and for a viewer to see the full house. So I think it'll really help my business. But it was a $170 expense that I knew was not a necessity. So what I did, I waited until that account filled up, and then I went off and bought it. And I didn't have to feel like, I was spending too much money on something that I wanted because I had decided to set aside the money for it. After all these deductions, I'm left with 33%. That's the money that's left in the checking account. That's the money that I get to spend on my needs, my monthly housing expense, my car expenses, my daily business expenses, my groceries, right? All the daily spending that comes out of the checking account that's left with the money after all these deductions. I don't spend the money in that checking account for, just anything I want to splurge on. Those have to come out of the savings accounts for the wants, but this is rather money that we build up to spend for our daily expenses, and we want that to grow to hopefully 3, 6, 9 months worth of personal expenses, because we are on an irregular income, so we want to build up a buffer for our needs to be covered. So that is how I'm using the Automatic Millionaire savings techniques taught by David Bach within my own personal checking and savings accounts. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I'll leave a link in the description where you can go to Tangerine. It's a little referral link that helps out our channel if you decide to get a Tangerine bank account. Until next time, all the best.